It's Aaron, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about liberals and conservatives because it's come up a few times in the last few videos that I've done where I've basically equated liberals and conservatives to being the same. I've said liberals are basically conservatives and conservatives are basically liberals, and a lot of people have had a lot of problems with me saying those things, so I'm going to talk a little bit about why I believe that here today. And I'm going to be using a little bit of information that I got from Non-Compete American Johnson's channel, link in the description box below. He did an amazing video about liberals just the other day, and I kind of want to branch off of that a little bit and give you my take on it as well. So let's get started. So the idea of liberalism is an old one, and conservatism and liberalism under a capitalist economy like what we have right now is basically two sides of the same coin. Traditionally, classical liberals enjoyed the ideas of liberty, freedom, equality, democracy, and capitalism. Obviously, there's one thing in all of those that is not like the other. One of these things is just not the same, and that, of course, is the market system of capitalism. Capitalism is actually extremely bad at giving people liberty, freedom, equality, and democracy because capitalism really only pays attention to one goal, and that's making larger quarterly profits. They don't really care about freedom. They don't really care about liberty, equality, democracy, or anything else. They only care about getting more money. And that's kind of obvious. You can see that played out in the entire system right now, how we are basically seeing an immense wealth disparity between the lowest bottom 50% and the highest top 1%. There is an incredible wealth gap there. And it has and continues to get wider and wider and wider because of that inherent need in capitalism for them to continuously accumulate more money. They'll do whatever they can to push down the little guy so they can lift themselves up, up, up and fucking away so they can make outrageous amounts of cash and create a billionaire class and that sort of thing. Now, there are lots of different types of liberals. You have classical liberals, you have neoliberals, you have social liberals, and then of course you have laissez-faire capitalist liberals, which are basically the same as classical liberals, but a little bit more on the side of, I guess, libertarianism, in the way that we understand it in the United States and Canada, where basically they want to have as free of a market as humanly possible without having any sort of government intervention and just allowing the capitalist businesses to get away with whatever they want to do. Basically, the freer the market, the freer the people. But that doesn't actually work, and you can see that it doesn't actually work played out perfectly well during the Great Depression. During the Great Depression, during the 1920s and the 1930s, laissez-faire capitalism literally destroyed the economies of every modern country across the face of the earth. So they thought, you know what, maybe this whole laissez-faire capitalism thing, this classical liberal idea of capitalism being unfettered, maybe it doesn't work so well. Maybe we should think of another way to do things, and that's basically where they brought in social liberalism, or what FDR did, basically. You know, the New Deal kind of liberals. A lot of people call them progressives today. That's where that sort of idea came into fruition, and it created a completely different, or at least a slightly altered version of the capitalist system that they had been running under for the last so many years. And this did help, to a certain extent, bring people out of their horrible rank poverty. It was able to do a little bit in fixing the economy. I mean, it certainly didn't work as well as turning the entire country into basically a de facto communist nation when they entered World War II and stopped... Hi. I mean, it certainly didn't work as well as when they turned the entire country into a de facto communist nation when they entered World War II and completely stopped the free market system from actually functioning because they were regulating it strictly through the government. But I digress. At least at this point, they realized that laissez-faire capitalism wasn't going to work, and social liberalism basically entered the fold. So what do you have now? You have laissez-faire capitalists, the classical liberals, and the social liberals, these new kind of liberals that believe in the New Deal and want to have workers' rights and union rights and that sort of thing. So now let's look at what we have here. We have our classical liberals, which are akin to our modern day conservatives, and we also have these social liberals who are basically akin to our modern day progressives or social democrats. But then we also have a third type of liberal, the third way liberals, the neoliberals, or basically what we would consider to be the liberal party of today. Now, it doesn't mean that conservatives aren't necessarily neoliberal as well. They can hold a lot of the same values and ideas as neoliberals, but neoliberals and neoliberalism is mostly tied to individuals like Bill and Hillary Clinton or other third-way Democrats like that. Also, you can think of Mitt Romney, Barack Obama, even Trump to a certain extent is neoliberal. But we mostly think of the kinds of policies that Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton would have instituted. Socially conservative policies that hint at a certain amount of, at least waving at minorities, but not really taking into consideration or to heart any of their actual problems or any of their actual needs. They don't really care about that. What they do care about is making sure that the market system works within this framework of sort of a liberal democracy and is able to scrape out as much money as humanly possible. And we have actually seen, since the institution of this neoliberalism, an incredibly stark divide between the richest and the poorest in our society. That's when we started to see, during the 1970s, wages falling at an incredibly high rate, production levels soaring through the roof, and billionaires and millionaires making more and more money than they ever have in the past. That's basically the idea of neoliberalism. And conservatives, modern conservatives, they follow right along with that path. They want to go along on that ride because a lot of those things that neoliberals are talking about isn't antithetical to the ideals of modern conservatism. The real difference between liberals and conservatives in the modern day really boils down to two things. Modern liberals like to hint at and wave at minority groups while primarily focusing on the market system of capitalism and elevating that, while conservatives like to wave at the old ways or traditional values while upholding the market system and the capitalist structure that created it. They are both basically functioning to do the same thing. To uphold the market system, to uphold capitalism, to uphold this structure that we are all currently living under. It doesn't matter if they happen to wink at minority groups or happen to wink at traditional values. At the end of the day, they're both fighting on the same team. Yeah, maybe once in a while, one person might come up with a lot better plan than another, and maybe their plan might cause a certain amount of harm reduction. But they both fight for that capitalist industry. They both primarily want that market system to succeed over all else. And like I said at the beginning, a market system is incredibly terrible at producing freedom, equality, democracy, liberty, or any of those things. And that's why we can't stand to use this capitalist structure any longer. That's why the liberal and conservative dichotomy is flawed and broken. And that's why I don't really pay attention to the liberal-conservative dichotomy that we've constructed in our modern-day society, because it really just doesn't exist, at least not in the way that we understand it. And that's really all I have to say today. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. My name is Aaron. Have a nice day.